We're rolling.
Welcome to the House Dudes podcast, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Jack Haas.
And I'm Josh Koth. Here at House Dudes, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. So let's get into some real estate investing.
Well, Josh, let's talk a little bit about rental creep.
You're a rental creep.
You're a rental creep.
So
those people who know us know who the creep is.
Let's define the term rental creep. So this is when you have a historic neighborhood which has some charming architecture and some other nice features of a kind of a think Norman Rockwell type neighborhood. And all of a sudden, more and more houses in that neighborhood are turning into rentals. So that's what rental creep is. Now, an article came up in our local paper here, and we'll post that in the show notes so everybody can reference what we're talking about. And it talks about a certain neighborhood in our town and how a large percentage of those homes are turning into rentals. And the residents are kind of looking for solutions. So as a real estate investor, I thought that was an interesting topic. You know, what's our responsibility as investors, if there is any? Are we supposed to be trying to prevent this? Do we just have to kind of roll with it? Are we being opportunistic by taking advantage, in quotes, of, you know, these type of zones and these areas in the city? So I thought it was kind of an interesting topic for discussion. When I read this, honestly, I had mixed feelings because, you know, as a nostalgic type person, I can sympathize with people that, you know, if you lived in a house for 40 years and all of a sudden some college kids live in the really nice historic home next door and they're having parties all the time, and, you know, that's not great for the owner-occupant. So, you know, I sympathize with that. So that's kind of what sparked my willingness and want to discuss this topic. So what do you think, Jack?
Well, I think in this case especially, it's kind of the perfect storm because they're talking about an area that's relatively close to the biggest college campus as well. So it makes it a very desirable neighborhood because it's historic and charming for people who want to live there, but it's also it's very attractive for people who want to buy rentals because it's so close to the colleges.
And as homes get older, you know, sometimes they've fallen into disrepair, so they can be cheaper to pick up too. So as an investor, we know that's the name of the game, purchasing the properties as cheaply as possible. So they're, you know, those two lines intersect where the property values are maybe low enough where they would work as a rental, and the proximity to the college makes them desirable as a rental too, like you said. So, yeah. But my question is, you know, going one level deeper than that, do we have a responsibility as investors to care about that or to try to prevent that rental creep?
I would say the only way we have any kind of responsibility is if that fits your exit strategy. I mean, there's likely an opportunity there if you identify it as such, that maybe it's a great opportunity as a fix and flip and you can piggyback off of this as a marketing.
So you're basically saying don't worry about it, just cruise on ahead and do business as normal. And if you buy it and keep it as a rental, and that's just how it worked out.
Or you
with no concern for the existing residents that have been there forever. Jack, you're so cold-hearted.
I am.
You're a rental creep.
I am a rental creep.
Yes, yeah, I'm conflicted, honestly. When, you know, like I said, I have sympathy for these residents. There's another thing that contributes to, as more of the houses turn into rentals, people leave more. And, you know, it's called like flight. They flee the neighborhood because of the increase in rentals. And that just compounds the issue. So that many more houses get vacated and sold at a cheaper price, and more landlords come in. Now, honestly, you know, as a business person, my stance on this is, you know, let the free market sort it out. If owner occupants wanted to live there, they would buy the houses. And my argument in favor of landlords purchasing them is typically landlords are going to buy at a discount. So it'd be very easy if an owner occupant wanted to buy the house to purchase it, you know, and outbid the landlord. So really it's not that landlords are coming in and scooping up all these properties and outbidding potential homeowners. It's more that the homeowners don't really want them. So the only option for the owner is to sell to an investor, possibly. So I don't know that you can do much about it. And neighborhoods change, things change, and that's just kind of the way it goes, unfortunately, for the long-term residents.
Yeah, and I guess I see it more as, and I think as investors, we have to see that we're providing a service of some kind too. Typically, by the time it gets to us, the house is in significant disrepair, and we're probably improving the neighborhood value, if anything else. I mean, look at we've run into situations before. We just sold a house that was in a not the greatest neighborhood. The house was in complete shambles. Mm-hmm. The lady that lived there for years, and she raised her family there, which was an awesome concept. But unfortunately, that house was in such disrepair that it was reducing the value of the houses around it.
Right. Well, and on that one too, we also sold it to an owner-occupant as opposed to keeping it as a rental. So, the other occupants of the neighborhood would argue that we did the right thing, in quotes, by selling it to another owner. Now, let's say we had fixed that up and kept it as a rental. Would that have been contributing to the problem or still helping because at least we improved the property?
I would make the argument at least we improved the property and turned it around. I mean, mm-hmm. Even if we made it renter ready, it was in far better condition than when we took it over.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's still an improvement to where it was. The other thing to consider, too, is at least in our town, if you have a rental property, it gets inspected by the city frequently. So it's less likely that a rental property is going to fall into disrepair as opposed to an owner-occupant house where they don't get inspected ever, do they?
No.
So, I mean, you could really, a neighbor would have to point out something horrible about your house before the city's going to come check on you if you own the house and you live in it. But rentals get inspected every couple of years. So the idea in theory is that they're more well-maintained. I mean, we've definitely seen exceptions to that. But at least they're being, an inspector's in the property every couple of years and they're got eyeballs on it and they're hopefully staying on top. And I'm sure every town and every municipality is different. So the argument there is hopefully the overall condition is better or could be better.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we stay in the proper mindset that we are providing a service, whether it is to the people who are trying to sell that property and I actually think it's a service for the community because many of these properties that we get our hands on are in such disrepair that in whatever exit we decide to do with it is always going to be an improvement.
Yeah, the property is always going to be in better shape when we're done with it. That's for sure.
So as far as I'm concerned, we are doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. We are helping our community the best way we can and the best way we know how.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's not much an owner-occupant can do if they live there and they see an increased percentage of rentals. And, people say that sucks and they want to know, what can we do? And, people tend to want to get in activist mode on this kind of stuff. But I don't know that you have much choice. I mean, if you live in that area and you have college kids partying next to you, I mean, you really have pretty limited options of, reporting them to the police, I guess, if they're constantly having noise complaints, or, you can vacate, which contributes to the issue, So I don't know. That's the one person I guess I have sympathy for. But again, like you said, if the place next door was trashed, you'd want it at least improved and fixed up and left in better condition. So I don't know, I'm still conflicted over it. But I think as real estate investors, we just, it's good to be aware of these things and just know what's going on in your market and in your neighborhoods. So that if you come up against these types of attitudes, which that's another thing too, as an investor, sometimes people think you're the evil, greedy person who with the super deep pockets, which as we know is definitely not the case at most of the time. You might get some attitude from some of the community and people that don't really understand the intent. Like you said, that we're there to serve, tenants, there to serve owners that we can help out by purchasing their property, taking it off their hands. Hopefully we're trying to do good there. And that's not always they don't always anticipate that that's going to be the case. So if you go into that attitude in your neighborhood, hopefully you can turn those people around and have a positive impact.
Well, I think that concludes this episode. We've put a lot of effort into providing useful content, and if you found value in the show and have any interest in supporting us with a small donation, head over to patreon.com/housedudes.
And if you have any thoughts or questions, shoot us an email at info@housedudes.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @housedudes. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other investors out there find the show.
And remember, massive positive impact requires
massive positive action. We'll see you next time. This episode was brought to you by HouseDudes.com. Do you live in a good cash flowing market? If so, Turnkey isn't the best choice for you. You should buy in your market. If you don't live in a great market for investors, where can you find profitable cash flowing properties? We love the Midwest, where prices are reasonable and the people are great. We personally invest here and have lived in the area all of our lives. So how does Turnkey work? We find the property, we rehab the property, and we find you a tenant and place you under the care of our local property manager, who we trust with all our own investment properties. I'm sure you have questions about how the process works and what to do next. If that's the case, fill out the contact form on housedudes.com and we'll reach out to see if you are a good fit for our business. We have a limited supply of properties every month, so we can only sell to a select few qualified buyers. We'll see you on housedudes.com.
I don't like to tell a man what to do with his money, but if you ain't investing in property, then you're dumber than a dummy.
I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
Well, buy property. That's my advice.